What's going on, everybody? We are the Bar Down Beauties podcast. Look at the Zephyrs in full force. Shout out to the Elskis, Matamidi fans, and my family. I'm so proud of them over there. That's a sweet hat, Sid. Sweet hat. We are the Bar Down Beauties podcast, talking all things hockey. I'm Jesse Pierce, writer for NHL.com, Wild.com. Anybody that'll hire me, Minnesota Hockey, once in a while. She's Kirsten Kroll, in-arena host for your Minnesota Wild. And again, we have a podcast releasing new episodes each and every Monday, talking primarily NHL, but dipping into the youth level. So now joining us, Minnesota Hockey's Glen Andresson. Glenn, what's going on, bud?
Not much. It's a fun weekend to be here, and another fun weekend ahead for us with our youth state tournaments next weekend. So it's a busy time, but kind of the time we work all year for. So
I was going to say, I love that the high school tournament obviously is its own special entity. But Minnesota Hockey does such a fantastic job rolling out the red carpet for the youth state tournament. And the irony of the connection there is not lost upon most guys and teams that are making it in that youth state tournament. Generally, a couple years down the road, you'll see them back here in St. Paul.
Yeah, it is kind of a 2 or 3 year preview a lot of times for the teams that'll be here. But obviously, it's not guaranteed.
Never
so,
guaranteed.
A Pee Wee championship does not mean you're going to be at the state tournament, but you do see a lot. And Maple Grove, a few years ago they had their run at Pee Wees and Bantams, and then you saw them here the last couple of years with a couple great teams. So yeah, you will see that, but then you'll also see teams that you didn't expect make it to the high school tournament that didn't accomplish a ton at the youth level, but they all come together when they're in high school. So it's pretty cool.
Minnesota Hockey has the Minnesota model, which again I think we take for granted here. We just assume that hockey is the way it is in Minnesota everywhere else. That's not the case. I mean, you put on that jersey for your community, and that's the way it is throughout your entire career.
Exactly, and that is not the way it is anywhere else. And I really didn't understand that. I mean, I grew up playing hockey in Duluth where we played outside until we were 11 years old. I thought that was the way it was done everywhere else too. But no, we have this unique model where you just play where you live. Literally, you can, from the time you're 4 or 5, you can wear the same jersey, live in the same house, sleep in the same bed, live with the same parents and siblings. And you go anywhere else across the country, you're paying a lot more, you're traveling a lot further to get to practices, to get to games. If you're a really good player at 14, 15, you are moving away from home, and you're not playing in atmospheres like this when you get to high school. So it is a model that's unique, but also it works, and it's important to us to keep it the way it is, but also keep improving it, enhancing it, and making sure it's where Minnesota boys and girls want to be when they're little and when they're older.
You had said it's a model that works. I mean, you look at the number of players in the NHL, and obviously that's still a small percentage of those that make it to the NHL. Go down to Division I players, though, the amount of Minnesotans. But even at the 8U level, you guys continue to surpass those numbers, getting new kids involved, which is the way hockey continues to grow, the way hockey's going to be sustainable. How are you guys continuing to do that, grow numbers, break records year after year?
Yeah, well, I think we really realized a while ago that hockey's a popular sport here in Minnesota, and we say it's the state of hockey, and it is, but that doesn't mean everyone's going to try it. And sometimes this great culture that we have can be a little intimidating to families that have never tried it. So we are always trying to find ways to welcome these new families. We're not worried about the families that mom or dad played hockey growing up. They're likely to put their kids in. We want those kids that their families are completely new. We want to break down kind of those intimidation factors, because a lot of these families, I mean, they don't know how to that socks go over their shin pads and things like that. And that's not a slam on them. That's just, there's a lot to learn when you're a new hockey family. So we want to break down those barriers. We want to knock down the perceptions that hockey is this exclusive sport, or that it's really expensive. It really isn't. And we talked about how unique it is. The cost of hockey here is so much lower everywhere else. And a lot of times people will associate that with, well, it's a lesser product. But again, it works. You mentioned the NHL players, 64 of them last year. Every single one played community-based youth hockey. Same with all the Division I men and women. So we want to keep doing what we can, but we have to be active in recruiting these families. We can't just sit back and expect them to show up. And that goes down to the grassroots level, all the volunteers at associations that work so hard to get kids into the program.
Right. I mean, Brock Nelson, when he was here the other day with the Islanders playing against Minnesota, was asking me about Hockey Day and asking me about War Road, saying, War Road is everything. I mean, that's how important and special these people remember, right? Like, they might make the NHL, and I think Lou Nanny said it best on our episode this weekend. They still go back to their youth days.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day. I remember hearing that Neil Broughton, who won a gold medal in the 1980 Olympics, a national championship, and a Stanley Cup, is still upset that he didn't win the high school state tournament. So, so those really are the stories. And, like, there's just every day I see or hear these stories that I'm just kind of like, that's Minnesota right there. That doesn't happen anywhere else. I remember the Becoming Wild show that gets shown, and one time Mario Lucia was in there and he was doing a tour of his house, and then he had like a picture of his state championship bantam team like on the wall. He's in his 20s. He's a wild prospect, and he's still talking about his youth hockey experiences and the friends that he had. So, that doesn't happen everywhere else, and you can take my word for it or not. But if you talk to, I'm sure the two of you talk to other NHLers from other parts of the country, and I know they'll tell you it was not that way.
I mean, Charlie Coyle, I had to figure out how Massachusetts works with him a time or two, because they do it very differently, and he's in awe of how it has been done here in Minnesota. Again, we're talking with Glen Andresson of Minnesota Hockey. We're the Bar Down Beauties. I'm Jesse Pierce. She's Kirsten Krull. Who you rooting for, Glen, today? I don't know if you know that the Matamidi Zephyrs are playing for the title in Class A. If I could influence you to be on the Zephyr side.
Well, what do the signs say? I just want both teams to have fun. Like,
yeah.
No. I'll say this, Jesse. For Minnesota hockey, we look to the north as kind of the way to do things, and so War Road, I mean, you can't really do things any better than the way they do it. Kids up there are skating for free all the time. They show up to the rink, they play. So I love what they do, but hey, Matamidi is one of our communities in Minnesota hockey too, so I wouldn't be upset either way.
Exactly. It's going to be a great time. What is your favorite part about the tournament? If you had to pick, or if you could sum up the tournament in 10 words or less, how are you going to do that?
2 words would be Friday night. Friday night is my favorite time to be at the tournament. I'm going over 10 words now, but but I just try to never to miss Friday night. That time of like the third period of the first game to the first period of the second game, when the crowd is just at its peak. There's probably 20,000 plus in there. Just the excitement for all 4 of those teams that are still left in the AA. And yesterday I had to leave the expo to go to my kids' festival of learning at their school, which has included a little concert and dance and things like that. But by 7:30, I was out of there coming back so I could catch the end of the first game and the second game last night. So Friday night is my favorite time of this weekend.
Nothing like it. Again, Minnesota Hockey hosting their youth tournaments next weekend. It's going to be a good showdown. Any good teams to keep a lookout for? Any new teams joining the youth tourney next weekend?
Yeah, there's always new teams, and we have B team, Pee Wee B, Bantam B. Back when I started 10 years ago, that's when they, started 3 levels at Pee Wee AA, A, and B, which really opened up the opportunity for more teams to go to state. So there was always these, smaller towns on the youth and the girls side that will go to the tournaments, which is great. We want more kids to experience those opportunities, more communities to experience those opportunities, and I get excited when those smaller towns kind of have success at the youth level, because the whole town does get behind these 11, 12,
Halleck,
13,
that's
14.
one that I remember,
Halleck,
right?
exactly. Cannon River this year for the girls. Moose Lake a few years ago. Like, the whole town just got behind it. So it was really great. And we see that every year, and it just kind of reinforces why we love doing what we do.
Exactly. Well, Glen, thank you for all that you guys are doing at Minnesota Hockey. Minnesota Hockey here at the Expo. Go over there. Pin your state, which is one of my favorite things that you guys do, where you can put a little marker of where you're from, and be sure to check out all the cool things they're doing. Glen, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to take another quick break, and we'll be back with Natalie Darwitz in just a little bit.